2013, a TV show called Orphan Black first aired. I was not watching. Before streaming, I was under the impression that most television does not know why it was on. Once you get into later seasons and showrunners are basically improvising. There's a general lack of dignity or direction that put me off a lot of TV of this era. So I want to briefly touch on the final season of a show that went out on its own terms, with absolute grace and dignity, and made the entire show feel like a cohesive, intentional whole. It's a final season as season 5. Can you think of how many good season 5s there are in the world? That gives meaning to everything that's come before it. It made me appreciate the series on its way out more than it did whilst I was in the thick of it. So this stands as a recommendation, a spoiler of the final episodes, and an exploration of one perfect arc. This is in title. Cockney hood rat and drug pusher Sarah Manning, played by Tatiana Maslany, watches another woman, played by Tatiana Maslany, commit suicide. Soon, Beth and her immediate family stumble into a whole network of clones, discovering that there are hundreds of women looking exactly like her with her exact DNA, all over the world. And by this point in the show, we've learned who our enemies are, which organizations are out to claim us as IP, as well as a general sense of how deep this goes. Recruiting many sisters on the way. Hang on, were all of my friends watching incredibly cool biological horror sci-fi without me? For all these years? 5 seasons deep of plot. It's a really plotty show, sometimes to its detriment. And Sarah Manning and her unit of clones, played by Tatiana Maslany, they've built a really strong investigative case against the company that created them. Very, very unethically. By this late stage, we've either worked with every villain, we've either turned every villain, or buried them in Donnie's garage. It's a cool bloodthirsty show like that. In season 5, not one of the sisters is on the same warpath. All of them are off doing their own batshit weird approach. Cosima is a scientist and is working within the enemy camp, being invited to ballroom dinners. The suburban soccer mum has her own weird line of attack. One of them has elected to become the series villain, and Helena, my favourite, is hunting in the woods, caring for babies. She's less of a character and more so a wild encounter. But on top of all of it, we have the character we started with back in that very insular, disconnected first season, Sarah. Shit from my bloody ends.
Piss off! Piss off, Vic! Piss off.
Sarah Manning's been off the radar a bit. Constantly the focus of plots, whether it's getting her daughter to safety, going on the run, doing her favourite trick where she pretends to be one of her other sisters and then slashes someone's throat with a knife. But season 5 does something really interesting with her. I noticed that Sarah was getting a lot less time to just be a character, because she was so fun throughout most of the other seasons. She's a super leery, paranoid fuck-up of a woman. A great main character, but when a main character gets too invested in the narrative, you lose them a bit. And that was definitely happening here. I just wanted a character piece. It's not a show without drama, it's very, very good drama. But Sarah ended up too often as a plot device, the character who went from A to B to get what they need for C. And other characters do start noticing that she's a bit of a bummer. I know all of our lives are property to a corporation, and we have horrific little animals implanted into our skin that can violently kill us and experiment on us at any given moment, but what a bummer. I think Sarah's the only character who stays on target. Like, they're always building a case against them, but every other character gets spoiled with eccentric subplots. The housewife starts a drug empire. Cosima has her evil French villain girlfriend. I don't actually think she's evil, I think she might just be French. We even get to know the main villain's kinks. In fact, we get to know a lot of characters' kinks. Sarah doesn't really get any of them because she's so driven to get to the end of the series, and some people were helping her, and the results in one of the most fun characters becoming all business. Season 5 actually does something with it. It made it intentional the entire time. Last season, Sarah almost destroyed her relationship with her foster family, her foster brother, specifically when he finds his birth sister and starts integrating her with their weird fugitive sci-fi lives. But with 4 seasons of paranoia behind her, she can't accept this new addition to the family. That's a spy. It wouldn't be the first handler in the series, and actually, I think they got them all by that point. Shot and buried in the garage. How many guys are down there? But it really stood out to me how characters around Sarah are trying to live their lives or have a little speck of normality in the 5 years since this crazy campaign began. And Sarah just can't let normal things in. She can't let new people in, that's for sure. And I get the sense that this main pressing plot of the whole show is starting to become a bit of an addiction for this once junkie. There's a few episodes where they try to get her to go cold turkey from the series' main plot. I just don't think I've seen that before. That was very funny. But it's not through a lack of love or care. The people around Sarah have given up their lives to fighting for her and her daughter's freedom. But it still has gone unresolved. There won't be any rest for Sarah until all of her enemies are dead and all of her sisters are free to continue living their very different lives. Man, call me a clone, because I'm a junkie for plot progression. Let's keep this shit going. Sorry, Felix, we're speedrunning. We don't have time for side quests. And episodes pass and revelations are made, as happens in Orphan Black. This mission, it does cost her. She loses quite a lot of family members. This is a lead character who is still carrying the weight of handing in the closest thing she has to a grandmother as a bargaining chip. We stopped playing nice many seasons ago, and no matter where the show goes, that desperation is always felt by the viewer. It builds. And then the finale comes, and this is what pushed me to reassess the entire show and to make this video. The sisters are together, they've got a new, bigger, beautiful family, their diseases are cured. There's nobody left to profit off of their genetic code. Sarah's daughter will never be a lab rat. She's successfully gotten them all the future that they deserve, the freedom they deserve, a sisterhood, sisters and babies. They have a barbecue. They have a lovely little barbecue. And still, Sarah isn't happy. Because now, with no enemies left to face, nobody else left to blame, she has to contend with the fact
There's no one left to fight. And I'm still a shit mum.
It tore through me. Sarah got obsessed with the danger. She became dependent on leaving her daughter with other caregivers so that she could feel like she's fighting for her in a general sense. Sarah has been afraid, terrified of normality that the series has been threatening her with because she feels like she's not up to it. This character never finished school, she doesn't have a job, and she keeps pushing her family away. That's not something that this character can really afford to do, because she's lived her entire life as an orphan. Now yeah, suddenly the name of the show makes more sense to me. The complex becomes relevant again, and we return back to Sarah because we've always been focused on Sarah, even though we didn't know it.
You've never even taken responsibility for yourself. Sarah, how are you going to be responsible for 2?
I don't know, you said it was my choice, didn't you?
Yes, but your choice does not a mother make. You need to show me you can be still. And I will be here for you. I will support you, whatever it takes.
I need your support. I don't need nothing from you.
Sarah Manning has her freedom, and part of that freedom is the freedom to keep making her mistakes, to keep being a fuck up. Being on the run was an impersonal thing for her. Taking down a pharmaceutical company was chump change. She's still got to reckon with the basics of being a person. And I try and land on this series' position with adoption, because all of our main characters are adopted, none of the sisters can really birth children, and that results in lots of orphanic drama. That's nothing, Sam. And I think in the series' final moments, the whole thing clicked. I've never been through the adoption process, but if this whole series is one big moving metaphor, then I think the thing I would be the most scared of is freedom. But here she is at this family barbecue being given advice from her new, enormous family that she earned. biological family, found family, Felix coming around introducing his new family. I've never seen a show in its final moments explain its own thesis so well. And all of this to neglect the nature versus nurture angle that it's also doing in the background, insane balancing of plates. I don't think I have anything to add to that, because look at it, it's testament that all of these women are more than their birth, they are their surroundings. They've fashioned themselves into new people. By episode 5, you have forgotten that all of these are being played by the same actress. I'm not exaggerating. By season 5, the idea is almost impossible in your head. And if that's not the moral takeaway of your adoption story, I don't know what is. And it's a lovely ending. Sorry, can we just appreciate how few female-led sci-fi franchises there are for a start, but then how many female-led revenge stories actually let their characters get the satisfaction. Usually they have to think better of it or move beyond it, but Orphan Black does that, and then it lets them massacre their perpetrators. Because ultimately it's an adoption story, where the main threat is a board of directors' control over the biology of many, many women, and namely their reproductive rights. Maybe Sarah Manning should slice one of their throats open. Yeah. Or that. I almost don't know what I'm doing here, because those final 45 minutes speak for themselves so loudly. Pointless video. Bad video. Orphan Black was a sick show. Thanks, Erin.